And hey folks, me again, back again with another video. Today I'm going to be reacting to the Evercade. And yes, go check out the YouTube channel Metal Jesus Rocks. Hope you enjoy the video. And yes, he's that good. So, hope you enjoy. Like, subscribe, follow me on TikTok and Discord. And let's begin.
And that is the evercade handheld put out by a company called Blaze. Now I guess on the surface, this looks like perhaps another emulation system that we've seen come out over the last couple of years. Well, this is a little bit different because unlike other systems, this actually comes with its own proprietary physical cartridges. This
there you go.
was really designed by people who understand the retro gaming market and how important physical media is. And so it takes a really interesting approach to this. So before we take a look at the handheld itself, just know that it plays these multi-game cartridges, which come with multiple games on one cartridge
Exactly.
for about $20, and they're all full
there you go.
licensed. However, before we get started, I do want to mention that Blaze Entertainment sent me this unit for review, but nobody is reviewing this content before it goes live, and of course, all of the opinions are my own. So for this review, they sent me the premium pack, which comes with the handheld, as well as 3 of those game cartridges, or about 36 games, as well as most of the other cartridge packs that we plan on selling day one when this launches. You can see some of the publishers here, a lot of them that you'll be very familiar with, like Data East, Atari, Namco, Interplay, but then some other ones that I thought were kind of interesting here. Technos, as well as Pico Interactive, and then Megacat Studios. And each of these cartridges has anywhere from 6 to 20 games on them, and there are currently over 120 games that you can get.
There you go.
You get all of these packs. And what's really cool about this is that when you open up the clamshell, there is a full color manual included in every single one of these, and it's very specific to that publisher. So you'll open up the manual, and right off the bat, it'll have a little bit of information about that publisher and its history. And then every single game included on the cartridge has both its controls as well as some information about the game, and sometimes even hints. And as you can see here, it's printed in full color. So again, it's very much designed for retro game collectors like me who care about this sort of stuff. Now we're going to dive into those cartridges, and I'll show you a bunch of gameplay footage, but first let's check out the handheld.
Oh, nice.
itself. Now you'll notice that the size of this is comparable to, say, the Sony PSP. Maybe a little
That's
bit
basically
larger,
their
but
attempt at
screens
copying the
definitely
PSP.
are very similar. And here it is compared to the Nintendo Switch. So obviously the Switch is much larger, but I feel like the Evercade is definitely a little bit more portable. You can certainly put it in your back pocket.
Exactly.
Notice that the D-pad on the left is very retro inspired. It feels very similar to the one that you would get on the Sega Genesis. Walking around the front of it here, you have a menu button, as well as start and select, and 4 face buttons over there. You also have 2 speakers, left and right. And then on the bottom, you have
jack.
your volume up and down, as well as a place to plug in your headphones. And then over on the right there is where you plug in a micro USB to charge the 2,000 milliamp battery, which is included in here. So it's a rechargeable battery, and it lasts for, they say, about 4 to 5 hours. And in my testing, that seems to be pretty accurate. On the top, you have 2 shoulder buttons, which are clicky and are very comfortable, actually. You also have a power switch, and then over there is a mini HDMI out. So you can connect this to your HD television and play there, and that's actually how I'm going to be capturing the footage for this video as well. And then, of course, there is the cartridge slot, which is the part of this handheld that I feel is the most unique about it, is that it actually has its own proprietary physical format.
Exactly.
The cartridges themselves are decently sized, have a nice little label on them, and they remind me of the Neo Geo Pocket Color cartridges that came out, obviously, many years ago. But they're very similar in size, in weight, and also thickness. It immediately pops up the menu, like there is almost no load time, and as a matter of fact, the menu itself actually is
it puts you right in there.
Very zippy. Games look and play fine while running on the handheld.
Yes, I do recommend it.
Called Tanzer by Megacat Studios. That is a 2D platforming run and gun game.
And don't the hipster half-wits tell you otherwise. Oh, it's not the 1980s anymore. Fuck off, hipsterella.
It's running some sort of emulator. They talk a little bit about that on their website. So, in theory, there should be a little bit of lag, although, again, they address lag on their their site and say that they've really worked hard to try to minimize that as much as possible. And to be honest, I didn't really feel
So
any
evercade is basically the Switch meets the PSP, to say the least.
Are not taking up the entire screen real estate, and that is by design, because by default it will be in 4:3, which I think a lot of gamers like me pretty much prefer, because that's how they should look. But you do have the option, if you bring up the menu, to switch it to full screen if you wish. And a really nice feature of the evercade is the ability to plug in a micro HDMI cable and then output the video
there you go.
to your HD television, which is great
Epic.
if you just want to play it on a big screen, or
It's
in
perfect.
this case, if you
What do you
have a
expect?
YouTube channel or you stream, well, you can easily output it there as well. And what's nice is that most games support save states, so anytime that you want to do that, you just hit the menu button, and then you can do a snapshot.
And it
of
also
your
has a
action,
pause
and
feature.
then come back to it at any time. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some individual multi-game cartridge packs. And the first one we're going to take a look at is the Data East Collection, Volume 1.
Don't worry, it's just to add people. I hate ads.
You might even earn your master's degree in 12 months for under $11,500. Capella University. Don't just learn smarter.
Volume 1. So this has 10 games included in it, and again, it's going to be for about $20. And it's a
There you
mix
go.
of 8-bit and 16-bit games. Let's go ahead and check out the main menu here. And in there, you can change the screen ratio,
Full
either from
screen.
4:3 or to full screen. There's a bunch of different
English
language options, and then you just hit the start button if you want to launch the game. Here we have the game Two Crude Dudes. Now, I have to say that is a contender for possibly the best name of any video game ever. Here we have the home console version of Karate Champ, a game I used to try to play in the arcades, but I was always terrible at.
There
But I
you
always
go.
appreciated that it was at least an attempt to be a little bit more realistic when it came to karate. Here is Magical Drop 2, which is a puzzle game that I actually enjoy quite a bit. And you see the Super Nintendo version here. And this is Midnight Resistance, which is a run-and-gun shoot-'em-up game, very similar to Contra. This game originally came out
That's
on the
right.
Sega
Saw
Mega
why you
Drive,
like hipsters.
this-
Classic games are making a
and
comeback.
Here is Joe and Matt 2, Lost in the Tropics,
Dude, but fuck
which
with it.
originally came out on the Super Nintendo. Really fun platforming game. Now let's check out the Interplay Collection 2 cartridge, which comes with 6 games, including Blade Fighter 2, originally for the Super Nintendo. This is my first time playing this game, and I was not overly impressed. I think it looks kind of cool because it has a pre-rendered look, but probably not the best fighter. I definitely had a lot more fun with the game Playmates. This game originally came out on the Super Nintendo, and as you can see here, it's an action 2D platformer. But certainly a better game is, of course, Earthworm Jim 2. This is a classic, and it plays really well on the system.
Whip it. Whip it good. So whip it. Whip it good.
There are currently 2 collections of Namco games, each one of them having 11 games.
Oh, well, you know, it's Pac-Man.
And the first one I had to check out
Classic.
is Battle
Don't
Cars.
think. Buy.
A futuristic car battling game that's using a bunch of Mode 7, and very playable, really fun game. I like this one a lot. Also included on here is one of my favorite top-down shooters, especially when I was a kid in arcades. That, of course, is Xevious. And I like Xevious because it had just such a unique sound effects. Like when you shot and destroyed the enemies, it didn't sound like normal explosions. They sounded like breaking glass. I always loved that. Also included on the Namco collection is a top-down shooter that I enjoy an awful lot. You see here, it's called Helios. But you may be starting to pick up on something that I did as well when I was playing these games. And that is, for some reason, they chose to include the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis versions instead of the much superior arcade versions. It got me wondering. So I emailed the people at Blaze Entertainment, the people who made the Evercade, and I was asking, like, was there a reason why you guys chose to put the console versions on the handheld instead of, the arcade versions when available? And the answer I got back actually, made a lot of sense.
Oh, I remember that game.
The handheld is definitely powerful enough to run the arcade versions, but they felt like it'd be kind of a jarring experience for the consumer to be dealing with the different aspect ratios depending on the game that they're going to try to run. As you guys know,
I remember playing that space game many years ago.
But in the arcades, especially in the
If you don't kill,
80s
if
and
you don't
early 90s,
kill all those aliens, they'll absorb your
smaller,
spaceship and
a little
become
bit
part of their
narrower.
clan.
So instead, they decided to just focus for now on the initial release on the home console version.
Pac-Man, woo 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 woo.
Inside into their plans for 2020, and they said that they are definitely looking into doing a arcade-specific release in the future. So, for instance, one of the companies is Namco, and they're working on an arcade collection for later on this year. Moving along to some other multi-game cartridges, here is the Mega Cat Studios Collection, Volume 1, and this comes with 10 games.
Oh, some recent ones. There you go, folks. Recommend it. Buy it.
Games in that Super Nintendo Genesis style, but again, they're all brand new. And I think this is pretty cool that they are doing a dedicated cartridge with 10
Cut
of these
print
games on it.
masterpiece.
Yes, you can get these games on other systems. Often they are download only, but you know, it's cool to have a collection of this independent developer. I thought this is pretty cool. And they've got some pretty fun games in here. I've already shown
It's America. Declare your independence.
But I also want to mention Coffee Crisis, because Coffee Crisis is a Genesis-style beat-em-up game, but it's got a hilarious story where aliens attack, and basically these baristas that are really into heavy metal decide to try and save the world. And what's cool about the game is the developers, while making it, reached out to a bunch of YouTubers like me and asked if they could put us in the game. So I'm in this game.
There you go.
As a boss, actually it's like a mid-level boss, as well as a bunch of other YouTubers. So it's a really cool game.
Drink up. Drink some coffee.
Another
Get
thing
in
about
there.
the games is from Pico Interactive. So for this
Underrated.
one, they've included 20 games on this one cartridge, which is a hell of a deal. Now, if you're not familiar with Pico Interactive, what they do is they basically
I'm starting to get an erection right now
resurrect games that
because my
either
classic gaming boner is fully erected. Woo!
Taiwan specific release.
Taiwan.
They bring them over to North America and add English, but other
English.
times they are unfinished games or maybe
Or games that hadn't been finished and it was shit canned. What y'all don't remember, some games did get released, but they were just shit canned before they were officially released to the public.
And some of them you might be familiar with because
There were games that had it all. Oh, like the Shadow video game from back in the 90s, but was shit canned before it was even released.
Next up is the Helios collection, which comes with 8 games. Many of these you're going to be familiar with, including Double Dragon 2, River City Ransom, Dodgeball, a bunch of good games in here that a lot of people are familiar with. And they also sent 2 volumes of classic Atari games. So each one of these has 20 games.
Yes!
And like many of the other compilations that you've seen in the past, it's not just Atari 2600 games, they also mix in Atari 7800 games, which honestly is a good thing because sometimes the 7800 version of a game is actually the better one.
Ninja fetish!
You know, it's funny because people know that I love the Atari 2600. I grew up with it. And so they'll ask me what games they should get when they first start collecting for that system. But I always have to pause and kind of think about it for a second because honestly, Atari branded games aren't necessarily the best on the console. So while this collection is good, don't get me wrong, I mean, there's some classics on here, and games that I really like, but for the most part, actually, it's always the Activision games that came out on the 2600 are the ones that were the best that you could play. So I would love to see them come out in the future with an Activision.
But you gotta remember, it's the hipster gaming industry. They would rather make every game look like a soap opera rather than an actual game.
2600 version and the 7800 version. You also have games like Centipede and Millipede, as well as Missile Command. Still a lot of fun to play today. Food Fight, a really fun 7800 game. Bowling, it looks dumb, but it actually is a lot of fun. And of course, Yar's Revenge, one of the greatest games made for the 2600. And then the last question that I had about the Evercade, and I think it's one that a lot of you are going to have as well, is that wouldn't it be nice if we could load our own games onto it? And so they actually addressed this on their website because, like I said, I think a lot of people were kind of curious about it. And And so they acknowledge that it is a bit tricky because they are working with publishers and developers that want to protect their IPs, their intellectual properties, and not promote piracy. But they do say that perhaps in the future that they could release sort of a developer SD kit that would come in the form of a cartridge that you could then put on your own ROM. So I think that would be pretty cool. I would love to see what that looks like. So I guess we'll have to stay tuned. So the Evercade's going to come out in April, and there's going to be 2 versions of it. So the standard edition includes 1 cartridge.
But anyway, folks, I'm going to leave the video right here. Hope you enjoy the video. And yes, buy the Evercade. And subscribe to Metal Jesus Rocks. He's that good. So hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, follow me on Amino, TikTok, and Discord. God bless y'all, and I'll see you next video.